Welcome back, you guys. I'm Tassie, and today I'm going to be talking about Hmong shaman teachers and really how that kind of works. A lot of people had questions for me, especially like regarding my own experience. You guys went to my website and you read up on how I started doing YouTube, and they wanted to know like how did I actually get into the whole shaman world, especially because I was born and raised going to church. I was Lutheran. One day, I plan on writing like a book about my own experience and all the like information I might have, but long story short, a lot of it had to do with Michael. And Michael was the demon who was with me for a very, very long time. Having Michael with me, you can't, like for shamans, they can't get rid of something if they can't see it. So, same thing with finding a teacher to be, if you're going to be a shaman. If a teacher can't see you, then they're never going to be your teacher. So, nobody could ever see Michael. Nobody ever saw him. They couldn't tell that I could see spirits, I can talk to them. They didn't know anything about me, and it was all really, I was like out in limbo. Like, it was just for a very, very long time. And then what happened was I actually ran into a shaman. He did not become my teacher, of course, but I actually ran into him coincidentally, and he mentioned it in brief, like very briefly, because he said that he saw a glimpse of me, and he sees my huaneng, but he couldn't see like this part. I hate talking about, you guys, but I have to mention it just for my story, and you guys will understand it more as we get into this whole vlog about teachers. So in the shaman world, we have what we call levels. There are different levels of shamans, and if you are somebody who's very, very high, then shamans who aren't as high as you are, they can't see you. So a lot of them couldn't see Michael because of how strong he was, and then a lot of people couldn't see me because they keep referencing that I was a high level shaman. I don't like to talk about that. And the reason for that is because it makes people feel horrible if you tell them they're not a high level shaman. It really, really messes up people. So I do not like to talk about people's levels. Just because somebody is a high level shaman, it doesn't mean they're going to have this easy journey, that they're going to become this amazing, super powerful being. Okay. Then it's not even what it means. Okay. It's strictly, it has to do with what we believe. For Hmong people, we believe in reincarnation. And there's three spirits basically when someone passes. One spirit will watch the grave. And for those of you who are into the Hmong traditional aspect of this, the whole funerals, you have an egg, and if you want it to be cracked, and it's has a lot to do with that. So there's one will either stay with the family and watch their grave. That's one spirit, or else you can, of course, choose to get rid of that one. Some families will purposely keep that spirit around because they really, really love and want to be around that person still. So they'll purposely leave that person around. It's not always a good thing. But anyways, and then two, the second spirit will actually go off to be reborn. And then the third spirit will actually go back to the heavens, what we call Nu, and they have a job up there. So I don't really want to tell you guys my personal story because I don't want people to be like, oh my God. And plus, I don't want people to be like, oh, she's full of herself. That's why I don't want to talk about it. So basically, whatever job you had in the spirit world, that can define your level. So if you are a god reborn, if you are a child, if you of a god, if you watch gates, if you just protected this one area. So you all have different jobs when you pass on. That leads and ties into like the reason why I became a shaman was because I knew that was the only way I could get rid of Michael. All of the shamans that I came across, even if they were well known, and this is like my mom, she was really into it. And I knew a lot of people who knew a lot of shamans too, even if they're really well known. They are said to have a lot of great abilities. Nobody could ever see Michael, and they couldn't see me. And so it was one of those things where it got to the point because he started hurting people that were close to me in my life, and he really started to terrorize me. And so I knew that that was the only way to get rid of him was if I became a shaman, and then I took care of it. So that's how I became a shaman. And so moving on. So the next part of my vlog here with teachers, keep this in mind. This is going to be my own knowledge and experience, and strictly for the shamans who are like me. I am the type who has a bench and I shake and I can host whole ceremonies, all right? There are the shamans who we would call them Neng Shao. So Ningxiao are typically the ones who, it's like a Buddha. They are the ones who really can see future, past, presents. They're very clairvoyant. They may use tarot cards, candles, flowers, etc. There are shamans who are like me, where you guys have a bench and everything, and you can host ceremonies, and you have the clairvoyance. Okay, that is part of being the New Age shamans. But then these type of Ningxiao, they are not able to host whole ceremonies. That's why. And regardless of what type of skills and abilities you have, don't compare your journey, especially like the skills that you have, with another shaman. The reason for that is because if you become really disheartened, then how come I can't do that? Um, it the number one thing that it will hurt is your spirit guides. It's not going to hurt anybody else. Nobody else is going to care you can't do something, okay? Your spirit guides will become what we call thuxia. They'll be really disheartened that they aren't good enough for you. So it's very important that you, and it's really hard to say that to somebody, especially if they're, ugh. Okay, another thing is the shamans who do not have the clairvoyance. It is something that's very, it's, it bugs them a lot. They don't have it because they want it. It's just, they just want it. And it's very disheartening because then what they do is they focus strictly on trying to get clairvoyance skills, and they don't focus on the ones that they currently have. And they don't think they think that it can just be given to them if they look hard enough in the spirit world. But there is a theory, of course. You can have multiple teachers. So if you raise your final level with one teacher, but then you end up really liking this other teacher because they have a lot of clairvoyant skills, you can also start over and then have them raise you as well. And what happens is some of their skills will come to you. Some shamans who strictly have mostly of the clairvoyance, but they can't really kill demons and push them off of them, then they would also do that. They may raise all the way to their final level, and then they would go and ask another teacher who strictly is stronger at killing demons, and then ask them to be their teacher so that the extra abilities will come to them. So there is that as well. All right, we're getting off topic. So now we are going to go back to how you really start. So finding out if you're a shaman, of course, you have to go to shamans and see if you will become one. Now, just because you are going to become one, it doesn't mean you have to do it, because the next part is if you're going to accept it or not. A lot of people will accept it, and they would have their own personal reasons why they would accept this life. And then a lot of other people, they won't, especially if it's their children and the children are very young. So with that, if you decide not to accept it, so if you're not going to be a shaman who is being forced into this, all right? And when I say that, for me, for example, I was born where I had to do it. And when I mentioned when I was 5 years old, there were demons that had came into my living room and they grabbed my wrist when I was trying to run for it. And then the next day, both of my wrists broke. So my Kwaneng, they actually told me that that was the point. I was supposed to become a shaman, and I got yelled at a lot about why didn't I become a shaman. I mean, I'm 5 years old. There was no way my parents were going to allow that. So they took me to a Cambodian family, and the Cambodian family healed my wrists. Now, they did take me to some Hmong ones, but I don't think it worked for some reason. And, I went to the doctors and everything, and the doctors wondered if my parents were abusing me. It was nothing like that. And anyways, so I am not the type that can push off my spirit guides. They will follow me forever. So, because they allowed me to have this break right now where I don't have a shrine. So they know that this is kind of like just what I needed, because I'm really good at negotiating with them. So, but I know I'm going to have to do it again. They only allowed me to have this because they're going to force me into it again. So it's either I do it before they force me or they will force me. So it's coming. Now, there are some, though, who don't have to Oneng in this lifetime. They don't have to become a shaman. And what happens is you can then choose to push it off to somebody directly related to you. It's really not going to be like your siblings, or like an aunt or an uncle, or even like like your grandfather. Typically, it would just be your parents or your children or your direct spouse. So You can push it off onto them, especially if they are already a shaman. You can just give them your spirit guides, and then that way you don't have to oneng. Now, a disclaimer for those who may have done it or are considering doing it. It's actually not good to do that, honestly. You will be punished. That's why. So, but a lot of people, they just think of the immediate instant factor that they don't want to do it. But you will get punished for passing off your spirit guides. Keep that in mind. So I'm not trying to force anybody into this. That is entirely up to you what you want to do. But a lot of people don't know that. Same thing with people, off topic, I'm sorry. Same thing with people who try to force their fate, which I think could be a totally different video. But people who like to force their fate and they will seek out a shaman to force it. You don't know what you're giving up in exchange for it. And the problem with that is people don't understand unless they were a shaman and they actually knew all of the things that will happen. It's like there are certain fates that you cannot change. No matter how hard you try to fight it, you will never be able to change it. Like me becoming a shaman, I tried to run from it for a very long time. And you can't change that fate. So I can feel when it's fate and it's happening. You can't stop it. But then I can also sense when are moments leading up to that point, can you change something? But that end point, your fate, it's still going to happen. You can't get away from it. So anyways, just know anything you guys do, there are going to be consequences. So if you are the person who likes to keep going to shamans and try to force somebody to fall in love with you or try to bring sooner children to you, there are consequences that come with that. And a lot of people don't know about it, so they don't know what the consequences are, so they just accept it. But it's not always going to be good consequences. Like, for example, if I really wanted children and I went to a shaman and to try and get the shaman to let me have a child, something will happen to your child's life. And a lot of people, they aren't prepared for it because they just want the child. Then sometimes the shaman doesn't say it and they don't tell you either. And then anyways, so yeah, let's just move on from this. All right, back to having a teacher. So, let's say you do not push off your spirit guides. You're going to do this. Now comes the part where you're trying to find a teacher. Finding a teacher can be so difficult in the shaman world. Very, very difficult. It's very, very subjective. So just because you're going to become a shaman, and even the shaman who sees you, it doesn't mean that they're going to be your teacher, right? So there's a lot of trust involved when it comes to finding a teacher. And the whole point of that, the reason why there's a trust issue, a lot of people, they won't go to certain shamans who aren't well known, who the clan doesn't know, they are strangers. The reason why they won't go to that shaman is because there are stories which are very, very real. What I'm about to tell you, it's going to sound absolutely horrific, but it happens. It's real. So there are some shamans who really want the money from being a teacher. They don't really care what happens to their students. So what happens is they will have you will come and ask them, and they're very, very nice, of course. Who's going to be mean? All right, so anyways, they'll actually have you come and they will send demons to you to make you shake, to make you seem as though you can oneng, which is be a shaman. They will actually send demons to you. And you will raise all of your final levels. With each level, you have to pay a fee to your teacher. Whatever the lineage is, they actually have a set price. Some are more expensive than others, okay? And it's not like you can go shopping at the grocery store and see how much something costs. It's not like that. So sometimes the shaman will raise you all the way up and you're done. Once you're done and you are no longer what they would call a student, or a fledgling shaman, you are your own shaman and you could have your own students now. When you're done, typically whatever issues you have afterwards, it is no longer on your teacher's fault. Like nobody will ever be like, oh, that teacher just ditched their student, because you became a full shaman. Whatever you do after that teacher has left you is your own fault. It is your own problem. You have to be able to handle it yourself. And that's why you should never be raised to your final level until your teacher absolutely understands you can do it on your own. So, what happens is these type of shamans will then take away their demons that they sent to you, and they'll wait like a month or two, and then they'll take it away. And then all of a sudden, you're trying to go into your shaman world, you're trying to do all the stuff that you thought you knew how to do, but it's gone. And that's why there's such a trust issue when it comes to finding teachers, because you don't know if you're going to find a bad teacher. Okay, I take that back. I totally take that back. Not a bad teacher. Just a teacher who has different plans for you. Because it's not, I'm not somebody who can say that somebody is a bad teacher. I'm also not somebody who can say anything bad about other shamans, because that is not okay to say that. It's like basically you're sinning. So you can't be saying those kind of things. I'm just saying. So not all shamans are like me though. But my spirit guides are very strict on the rules that they've set for me, because when you become a shaman, they tell you certain rules that you have to follow, and they only tell you once. If you break it, they punish you. So that is my type of, where not everybody's going to be like that though. Some people just love talking badly about other people. And moving on. Even with that knowledge that there are certain shamans who will do that, who will send demons to somebody, typically what happens for that person, individual, where it happened to them, they would go to other shamans to seek out what was wrong with them, and then they would actually see that it was a demon the entire time, and that their previous teacher had sent it to them. So then they have to start over. And even with that, it really depends if that teacher did anything with their existing spirit guides. Sometimes if they did do something with the existing spirit guides, the teacher would have to undo it and bring your spirit guides back to you. And that could lead to a teacher saying no to you, that they don't want to be your teacher because of the amount of work involved for you to become their student. Now, let's say, we're starting from scratch here. This is strictly just how to get a teacher, you guys. So if you strictly just want to get a teacher, typically what happens, a shaman sees you and then you accept it, right? Now you have to find who your teacher is. So there's a few ways you can go about finding a teacher. The first one is harder to do, but it tends to be more accurate. All right. So what people would do is they would zhou. And to zhou, you need somebody who knows how to do it. So what is it? It's basically capturing or catching it. Basically, the spirits will tell you. Like the spirit world, they will actually give you a definite answer. So what happens? Some people use a coin or an egg, and what they do is they will literally drop it in thin air. They'll just drop it. And if the spirits say yes, the spirit will catch it, and it'll be standing up completely straight. All right. So that is what zhou is. And you can use different tools too. It doesn't always have to be a coin or egg. Those are just more commonly used. So, the person who is trying to zhou for you, they would actually ask like, oh, like into the spirit world, is this person going to be this person's shaman teacher? And then they'll drop it. And then if the spirits catch it, then it's more accurate that is going to be your teacher. Now, because not everybody has that knowledge to be able to zhou, and you may not know somebody who can actually do that. So then the other option, you kind of like go canvassing, and you kind of go ask all these shamans if they'll be your teacher. Now, for that process, a lot of people will tend to choose then, like specifically which teacher they would want to have, because they like their style, they like their methods, any sort of reason why you may have a preference. Maybe your parents or your family prefer you to go to this person to be your teacher. Now, one thing to note, direct blood cannot be your teacher. Like, for example, if I had children, I cannot be my children's teachers. All right. It doesn't work that way. And same thing with my own children, my own blood children cannot become my teachers. Now, if it's somebody who's like, I think like sisters, brothers, children, really, even if they're like your aunt, they really shouldn't be your teacher, but it depends on how far removed the aunt is. So if they are like your direct aunt, then they can't be your teacher. Now, for finding a teacher, if you're just going to go canvassing and you're just going to try and find somebody, typically you call and ask them. Like sometimes they have a fee to see if they'll be your teacher. Sometimes they don't, but then sometimes they'll ask you for certain things. A lot of times, like for my own lineage, we don't charge anything. If you want to, if you wanted to just see if I could become your teacher. That is different from actually asking me to be your teacher, okay? So if you just want to see, and a lot of shamans won't charge for this, you will go to their house and they actually have a cap, and it could be black, red, or white depending on what type of shaman they are. I am a red cap shaman, but some people are black, some people are both colors, so it's really dependent. Now, if you and you have to go to the same cap as your lineage, and the teacher will know if you won't match them. Now, what happens though is a shaman typically has, for my lineage, when I finished my final levels, that cap that I had was considered my student cap. So before I raised my final level, I had to create a new one, which would be then my final cap to wear. So if I had somebody come over wanting me to see if I could be their teacher, they would wear my old cap that I had when I was a student. All right. So you just show up, and the shaman would take down their bench and they would give you a cap and they would tell you what to do to prepare you. And then they would hit a gong and see if you'll go. Now, when I say go is when you'll shake, and we call it ching. So if you ching, then that means that that person could be your teacher. All right. Now, if they try for a very long time and you still don't shake, most likely they will not be your teacher, because they have to be able to make you shake. If you are family, like if I had married into a family and you were their direct family, typically they would go the extra mile. Now remember, I have to be someone who married into that family. I cannot be that family because I can't be their teacher. So if I had married into a family and they were directly blood related to my spouse, then sometimes you would go the extra mile. If you try to make them shake and they won't, sometimes you may enter the spirit world and try to bring down some of their spirit guides, and then you would have them try again. And then typically that's more that it'll actually work. So, because you were able to bring their spirit guides. Now, if they do that process too and it still doesn't work, then you have to go and find somebody else to be your teacher. And that's very different from finally asking somebody to be your teacher. So when you ask somebody to be your teacher, you have to ask the shaman what are their requirements. Some people, it's like $100. Some people will be like $400. It just depends, again, on how much the fee is with the lineage. And in the future, remember, that is the same fee you have to do for any prospective students in the future. So then you would bring the fee and then whatever else they may ask for you. Sometimes they'll ask for like a huge stack of like Asian money that we burn in the spirit world, and a huge stack of the incense sticks, the Joss incense sticks. So sometimes they'll ask for that. Now, this is the part where a lot of people get hung up because the plane is coming by here. Let's give it a minute. I'm in like the descending lane, so like planes are literally like starting to descend, and that's why you can hear everything. Okay, it has passed. So, if you, this is the part where a lot of people get hung up as far as getting a teacher, because this is where shamans can deny you. All right, even if they make you shake and you absolutely know that's going to be your teacher, they can still say no to you. You need relatives. You need support. So if you're a single individual, you're not married, and you are supposed to become a shaman, you can still become a shaman. It's just your parents have to support you, because for shamans, you need the support where someone has to hit the lundoa, which is the gong. They have to hit it for you before you can take off. Now, a lot of times for like single individuals, they know that like your family will be there and they'll do it for you. So it'll be fine. But what happens, the reason why you need your relatives there is because there is a certain way to ask the shaman to be your teacher. There are certain words you have to use. And typically they need a guy there, because women do not bow to shrines, only men do. All right, so only can men bow down to the shrine. It's very, very improper if a woman does it. So then typically like your father or somebody would actually bow down to the shrine and ask, because you bow down to the shrine, not to the shaman, all right? Because it's the shaman's spirit guides that do it all, okay? So you should never bow down to the shaman. You actually bow down to their shrine. So if you bow down to their shrine, then it shows respect to the shaman's spirit guides, and they'll be more willing to do it. A lot of times they have to do it if you bow down to the shrine. So now some people literally will just like walk into the house and immediately start bowing down to the shrine. And then like the shaman's kind of like stuck where they're forced to do it. A lot of times shamans will first always say no. I don't know why they do this, but they always say no. I mean, for me, I say no because it's a lot of work being a teacher. But then like what happens then is people take it as a cue that this is the point where I'm going to bow down to the shrine, and then they have to do it, right? So then that's when you bow down to the shrine. Now, if you're married, all right, your husband would have to bow down to the shrine, but if it's your husband asking to become the shaman, then your whichever elders came with you, whether it's your family or his family, they would have to bow down to the shrine for your husband. So you yourself, if you're a woman, you never bow down to the shrine. Now, and then that's when a lot of times the shaman teacher will be, it's more like, oh, okay, so you know the rules, you know how to show respect, that's why. And then that's when the shaman is more likely to agree to do it. And then they'll tell you what you need to prepare for your first level. And then that's when they'll become your teacher. And this is the part where I mentioned a lot of people get hung up with, because not everybody has the network. Not everybody has the support. All right. So if you don't really have relatives, especially if, you know, your family goes to church and you're kind of stuck here where you know you're supposed to become a shaman, it's very, very hard. Even if you marry into a family that goes to church, but you're supposed to become a shaman, it is so hard. It is very, very hard. A lot of times that person's parents, direct parents, will help. And because of that, a lot of shamans will say no. They won't help, because they won't become your teacher, because they know how much of a struggle it will be for you if you don't have any support. If you like, what happens is whenever a shaman raises your shrine, like your teacher raises your shrine, or they do a ceremony for you, family members have to give thanks to the shamans, Huaneng, their spirit guides, after. So if they don't, it is a huge disservice and disrespect to your teacher. Now, I know a lot of people who could become great shamans, but because they lack in having support from their immediate family, people who just didn't know how to do it, people who didn't want to be involved in it, it hindered them in their process. I do believe that the future of shamans, though, it's going to be completely different. I think that the future of shamans, you know, we're not going to all have our elders, and the families are becoming smaller now, where not everybody's having 8 children each. So it's just the families are becoming smaller. Even like the ceremonies, they're not as extravagant or as big as they used to be anymore. And a lot of things are starting to change. So I do feel that in the future, like, because, like, I mean, think about me, right? Like, I'm not even married. So it would be hard to come to me because, you know, I don't have a husband. And for some traditional families, they would rather have a shaman teacher be one to their family, somebody who was more stable and was married and had a husband. And imagine my husband was white. Like, there's not even Hmongs. Like, so it's very, very difficult. It's very different. So, you know, like for me, I'm a lot more understanding in that aspect. Because you could become a great shaman, but what hinders it is just the family support afterwards. If they will actually give thanks, proper thanks. Sometimes though, like if you can teach people like what they're supposed to do and say. So like if it's like, you know, like let's say your parents have passed, you don't have any uncles who are close to you who would know these things, then it could just be like you and your brothers. And then that shaman would actually teach your brothers what they're supposed to do. So in that way, when the ceremony happens, they actually do it accordingly. So in all of this, it used to be more for the ego of the shaman. Now, I feel like for me, I would only require the part just for my spirit guides, because your spirit guides is the only one who's going to give you hell if you don't do it. One time, you guys. So if you guys, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but sometimes a shaman, like right after the ceremony and they eat, they want to leave right away. They're rushing to leave. There's a reason for it, because their spirit guides will punish them if they are not fast about it. So typically what happens is like, I did this ceremony once and I stayed a little longer than I was supposed to, but it was because like the food wasn't ready. and they didn't have a lot of people who came to help them. So they were like rushing to get things done. And it got really late at night. I didn't get back home until like nighttime. And so like I actually got in blow up for that because I took so long to get back to my shrine and to give my spirit guides thanks for everything that they did that day. So I actually got in trouble for that. It was not cool. It was not great. So ever since then, though, I learned to like rush after ceremonies. Like, I'm not here to hang out with you guys. Like, I gotta go. So it's just, so a lot of them will rush and try to leave because they have to do something when they get home. And so all of that, your teacher would teach you what you're supposed to do. This part is going to strictly be about you found a teacher, but then you never become a full shaman and you end up having to find a different teacher. So that's also very possible. A lot of times, and this is typically happens if you don't joning, which is why so many people will try to pressure you to joning because they want you to be absolutely accurate that this is going to be your teacher. Because let's say you ended up coming to me and then I raised you to your second level, but you start struggling. Suddenly you start struggling a lot. You don't really get it. You don't know what to do. You keep being lost. And sometimes this is what happens. Some shamans will get tired. They realize you're struggling and they don't know how to help you. So what they do is they just throw you onto your third level. Because once they throw you onto your third level, they think that by giving you your third level, you'll just be fine, right? Like they think maybe, oh, well, they don't understand things right now, but I think if I just make them go to their third level, then they'll get it somehow magically. Like I'm gonna bring more stronger Kuan to them, they'll just get it. It doesn't always work. Even if you raise somebody to their third level, some shamans do that on purpose to get rid of their student because the student is struggling too much. They don't want to deal with it anymore. And I personally know shamans who do that, and I was asked to do that to somebody before and I refused. I said no, that I was not going to do it because I ended up cutting the person loose only because I knew it was wrong to do that. And even though I was told directly to do it, I couldn't because I'm not going to be that person who does that. I don't want to get punished. I don't want to live with that sin on me. So I'm just, no, thank you. So that's typically when you'll find shamans who had multiple teachers. Because sometimes somebody is meant to just raise you part of the way, and then you're supposed to go and find another teacher, and then the other teacher will actually raise you all the way. When you go to another teacher, if they have the same lineage, let's say that all of these teachers, they all shared the same teacher. So most of the times, they'll just keep you at the current level you're at because your shaman styles are the same. So then they'll just finish you to your third level. Now, that won't always be the case. Sometimes if you go to a shaman teacher, they want you to start back from the beginning because they want the full fee of being a teacher. Now, my own experience having been a teacher, the only thing I would have to say is what I did not like about being a teacher is if you have bad students. And I'm not talking about students who struggle with the journey. A lot of them, they can't help it. They just really don't understand how to communicate with their spirit guides. I'm talking about the ones who turn bad, who turn evil, basically. Because, I mentioned that there you can, what in Hmong we will call it feng. Feng is like a curse or like trying to hurt somebody. And so, that ties in with my previous video, how I talked about how there are shamans who can hurt each other. And the skills and knowledge that you learn, it should not be catered for that. But there are shamans out there who just get jealous. They just get angry. And the only thing that they may have that they know they could do is try to curse somebody or try to hurt somebody. And it's hard because you don't want to be the person who raised and gave this individual their gifts only for them to turn out being evil. It's very hard that you were their teacher. So that is the only thing I don't like about being a teacher. And it's not about anybody who's struggling with their journey at all. It's just strictly going to be if they end up going bad. And the thing is, whenever people go bad, they justify it. They completely justify it, where they were like, well, I was completely wrong. But that person wasn't even a shaman who you tried to hurt. So, all right, but then that's basically it for finding a teacher, how that actually works, and if you have to get a different teacher. And as far as like your teacher or what your teacher teaches you, because I've mentioned they don't really teach you anything. They only teach you like the rituals outside of you going into the spirit world. But what happens though is after you enter the spirit world, they always ask you what happened. Like, what did you learn? What did they show you? What did you see? What is your experience like? Because they want to make sure you're not going crazy. And they want to make sure that you know what you're doing. They won't give you the information though. They won't be like, oh, well, every time when I'm going to do this, this is where I go and this is what I do. They don't tell you those exact steps. You're supposed to go in there. You're supposed to figure it out on your own. And when you come out, you have to tell them what you experience so that your teacher knows for sure if you're really doing it right or not. And yeah, but they just teach you like, your fee, rules that they have for their own students, and they have a right to drop you at any point in time they want. And yeah, so basically that's pretty much it. Like shy looking at the future, past, present, they don't teach you any of that because you may not be the shaman who has it. And so it's really just your spirit guides, or if you're going to be the shaman type who has that, your spirit guides will actually teach and show you and tell you what you're supposed to do. So if you don't have that ability and you don't really know what you're supposed to do, it just means you won't have that ability. That's why. So for some shamans, they'll actually enter the spirit world to be able to see it. So you could also do that too. You just may not be the type that will look at flowers or candles and everything like that. So just keep all those things in mind. For me, I'm not the type who uses flowers and everything. I'm actually the type who will look at the monk money, or I would enter the spirit world, or you would blow on incense sticks for me. So I don't actually, because those are really, if anybody uses flowers or candles and stuff like that, and cards to read the future, your future, especially if they write stuff down, that's more of the Neng Shou type, where they have more of that type of shaman style in them. But because I have a lot of the demon killing abilities, mine is strictly just going to be on the Hmong money papers and incense sticks, and then I actually enter the spirit world to find out things. So that's what I use. Oh yeah, I did do tarot cards though. I did do tarot cards, but then I actually stopped doing tarot cards when I became a shaman. So I was doing tarot cards before I became a shaman. So you guys have no idea the amount of things that my spirit guides try to do to get me to realize I was supposed to be a shaman. All right, you guys. So that's basically it for this vlog. And until next time.